Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Hashimoto's Awareness Monthly webinar. I am Fabienne Heymans, and today we will have the pleasure to listen to 5 Things I Did to Heal by Dr. Natasha Fallahi. Before we get started, Pearl will go over a few logistics to help you participate in today's event and make sure that you are having a great experience. We know that if there is any question and you cannot join the webinar trial, we will post it on the website and on our YouTube channel, so don't worry, and hashimotosawareness.org, it will post there as well.
Hi everyone, it's Pearl. Lovely to have you here tonight. Welcome to our first live webinar. We're really excited to have you. As an attendee to this webinar, your microphone and camera will be turned off. So if you have a question, you can type it right in the questions box on your control panel. And we want to be really clear on this. It's the question box. You can ask questions throughout the duration of the webinar. And if you want to remain anonymous, please type a note at the end in your question. Here are the 4 key features of this webinar. Number 1, hand raising. This button is to let us know that you're here. We might ask the audience for a show of hands during the webinar. So right now, if you can, give it a try and click the hand icon in your viewer to raise and lower your hand. I'll give you just a second to take a look at that. And okay, great. Number 2, handouts. Dr. Fallahi has provided a gift for all of the live attendees, which is super awesome. There is a downloadable ebook available right before our Q&A session at the end. So after her presentation, this link will become available to you in your viewing browser. So stay tuned and don't forget, download this free gift before you leave the webinar tonight. Number 3 is the chat feature. This is just for announcements from us to you, so no need to look at that or take a look at that in any way. Number 4 is the questions. So Dr. Natasha Fallahi or HA, if you have any questions for us, just type it, like I said before, in the questions box, and we will be pulling those questions from here for the Q&A at the end. And we're really looking forward to hearing from you guys. So yeah, and back to Fabienne.
And now we would like to welcome Dr. Natasha Fallahi. Thank you for being with us, Natasha.
Thank you, Pearl and Fabienne. I'm so honored to be hosting or presenting at our first live webinar. I think we're all a little bit nervous right now. This is our first time doing it, and it's live, so anything can happen. But we're really excited to have this opportunity to connect with so many people. We have such an overwhelming response. We have so many people attending this webinar right now, so thank you so much for jumping in with us and spending the evening right now with us. I'm going to be sharing 5 things that I did to heal, and in that is weaved my story of how I went through my healing process and eventually became a doctor. So what I'm going to be doing is providing a slideshow on the screen for you, and then at the end of my presentation, I'm going to be releasing a gift, an ebook for you that you can download directly as a live attendant here. So I'm going to go ahead now and share my screen. Get started here. So thank you, Pearl and Fabienne, for hosting me, and they will be joining us again for the question and answer section after this presentation. Okay. So I just want to say hi. I know a lot of you, I know you can't respond by audio or video, but I'm actually live here, and I'm so excited to have hundreds of you in the room right now sharing this experience with us. I wanted to, first of all, I mean, if you don't know me, my name is Dr. Natasha Fallahi. I practice in Berkeley, California with my partner, Dr. Titus Chu. We have a practice that we started called Koba Family Wellness. And this is some pictures from our practice and our community here. If you're familiar with the AIP community, there's Mission Heirloom here in Berkeley, which is an amazing autoimmune haven where people can get all kinds of AIP foods on the menu with the owners there, Yermis and Bobby. And I also travel the world with my partner, providing care and chiropractic adjustments to people of the world. This is a picture of me in Haiti treating some of the people, and we went to the Dominican Republic recently as well. In addition to that, I actually travel a lot to learn more and more myself. This began when I was kind of just a educated patient. I started learning so much about the care that I was getting, and then I eventually became a doctor of chiropractic myself and pursued extra seminars outside of that. Here are two of my biggest influences in the work that I do, but also personally in my health. First is Dr. Mario Martinez. He wrote the book Mind Body Code, and he talks a lot about psychoneuroimmunology and how culture impacts our ideas of disease and health and wellness, which has been massively profound for me in this healing process. And I think most of you know this other gentleman, Dr. Datis Karazian. He is, I think, the leader in holistic care and integrative medicine for autoimmunity, thyroid health, brain health, and he's just been such an amazing influence in my life as a patient, but also as a practitioner, learning how to address all of these issues holistically. I was also incredibly honored to be a part of the AIP Dream Team with my partner, Dr. Titus Chu. Mickey Trescott and Angie all asked us to be a part of their newest book release, and here with Charlotte DuPont doing a photo shoot. So this book that was actually just released, Dr. Chu and I are featured in it. We're the doctors in that book, and it was really exciting to stumble into this amazing autoimmune community that has so many resources for people to heal and have options to make educated choices. But before I became involved in all of that, my story started in my youth, in my childhood, where I had a totally healthy birth and was raised in a family where everyone was pretty hearty and healthy. And for some reason, I was constantly ill as a child. I was getting sick all the time. I had strep throat pretty much every year consistently, at least once a year. I got chicken pox twice, which is not even supposed to happen. And that sort of that set the stage for me to see myself as an incredibly sick, weak, kind of like, I don't know, I don't know how to say it. I don't want to say incapable of healing, but just kind of this person who's going to be chronically ill. I was always kind of tired. I had issues with my body, with digestion. And I was always in pain. And that was just kind of the life that I knew. As I got older, it progressed and kind of got worse. So in my late teens and early 20s, I really hit rock bottom. These are two pictures of me while I was in undergrad studying in Boston, Massachusetts. I was getting a dual degree in multimedia and graphic design. And on the outside, I was living the perfect life. I was going to a top school. I had tons of friends. I was socializing. I was traveling a lot. And I looked like everything was going perfectly for me. But inside, I was struggling and I was suffering a lot. I was incredibly tired all the time. What I just came to know of myself as just being a person with chronic fatigue. I had growing depression that had kind of trailed through my entire teens, and really explosive anxiety that I didn't really even know what it was at the time. So here's a picture of me with my friends at a dinner party, and next to that you can see a picture of me actually passed out on my desk in the computer lab, where it was, I have a picture of it because it was kind of funny. It was like a joke with my friends and I that I would just kind of go, 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 and then literally pass out at work or on my computer station. And it got so bad that I got all these mounting symptoms. I started experiencing severe anxiety to the point where I didn't really even know what anxiety was. I would be sitting in class and all of a sudden get this overwhelming feeling and run out to the bathroom and vomit in the bathroom, or while I was riding on the subway, have to get off at a stop and run to a Barnes & Noble's. And I didn't realize that those were anxiety attacks. I didn't know what was coming over me. It was mixing in with a lot of depression and my chronic fatigue that had always been there. I had terrible skin, hair loss, my hormones were completely imbalanced, and I had all kinds of digestive issues. I had body aches, and I was notorious for being cold all the time, to the point where I actually carried around a miniature space heater with me to keep myself even just like remotely warm at school and the computer labs at home. And it was kind of just this endearing joke that, you know, that was just who I was. And it became so bad that I actually took a significant amount of time off of school. I wasn't planning on just taking a break. I ended up dropping out for a while and returning home and not doing anything, sleeping at my parents' house, and the symptoms just kept getting worse and worse and worse. So I started getting really scared and upset about it, and I started chasing those symptoms from specialist to specialist, asking them, what's wrong with my gut? What's wrong with my skin? What else is going on here? There must be something bigger going on. And I thought I had some big, ominous, scary disease, but every doctor I went to looked at this young 20-year-old young lady who looked fine from the outside, and they all said, there's nothing wrong with you, it's all in your head. Take these antidepressants, and while you're at it, take this birth control as well, because your hormones are probably out of whack. This is an answer that I got over and over and over again, and I just couldn't accept it. So I kept searching, and that's how I found myself in the office of my first chiropractor. And she was the one that introduced me to holistic medicine and vitalism, which opened up this whole world to me of how to look at health in a different way than just a symptom and a drug to treat it. So I started becoming super interested in holistic medicine, integrative approaches, and I went there to, and so my introduction to this world was my first visit with her, where I went in thinking that a chiropractor was, I guess, what I would call a functional anatomist. I thought they just knew everything about posture and the body and muscles, and I thought, oh, maybe I have a muscle imbalance, and that's what's causing me all this pain. So I went in trying to get aligned for body pain. And at my first visit, I sat down and she said, tell me everything that's been going on. Even if you think it's not related, tell me anyway, because you may not realize that all this stuff is connected somehow. And that was, first of all, mind-blowing. I had never heard that from a doctor before. And so I did. I sat down and I told her everything, and I ended up talking for about an hour. And she listened to everything I said, and she tried to put those pieces together for me. And afterwards, she did the assessment for me, and she started explaining to me that health comes from many different factors. It can come from our chemical loads, it can come from our mental thoughts, and it can come from structural problems as well. This was my first introduction to the idea of holistic medicine, in which includes body, mind, and spirit. And so we started talking about all those aspects of health and wellness and what impacts it, and I started to learn about disease, or as chiropractors like to refer to it, dis-ease, which is the lack of ease in the body. And from that perspective, she taught me that disease is caused by three things: traumas, toxins, and thoughts. And in the world of holistic medicine, and especially chiropractic, there's this idea of a subluxation. And a subluxation is where there's kind of a blockage of energy in any of those. So it literally means dim energy, like life energy. So if you look at traumas, they create structural subluxation. So this could be a car accident, this could be repetitive motion, sitting at a computer all day. Then there's toxins that cause chemical subluxations. And this was kind of mind-blowing to me 10, 15 years ago when I was first introduced to it, thinking that the chemicals in my environment were having a massive impact on my body, mind, and spirit. And so this can seem like, you know, environmental toxins or food sensitivities or things like that that can affect our biochemistry. And finally, the idea of mental subluxations from negative self-beliefs and thoughts that we have that actually make us ill. It's not something that's just in your head. It's something that affects the psychoneuroimmunology of our body. So she did all her assessments and scans, and this, I just want to show you some examples of me as a patient going through this. Up on the top there you see normal optimal function, and on the bottom you see my first scans where my surface EMG and my thermal scans of my muscle tone and my nervous system function was incredibly out of whack. So I began care, and I started to learn about this hidden gem called chiropractic, which in the beginning I went in thinking it was about body pain, but then I started to learn that it was about improving the function and integration of my nervous system. And they were using the spine and the spinal cord and the body as inputs into that nervous system. So in other words, what was happening is they were connecting my brain to every cell in my body through my spinal cord, which was mind-blowing to me. And it was something that I was just shocked that more people didn't know about. And so that began my journey of what I did to heal. And that was probably the most profound thing that happened for me. The first thing that I did to heal was I let people touch me. Now, I mean that obviously in the sense of getting body work, getting chiropractic adjustments and massages, and how that impacts your neurology and your nervous system. But I also mean that metaphorically, that I actually let those people touch my life and impact the way that I saw the world, the way that she explained a different way of looking at health and disease and where wellness comes from. That was my first introduction, and I was open and receptive to that, and I let it touch me in my life. I didn't approach everything with skepticism. I went in with an open mind saying, I know that there's more out there to learn, and I want to learn it. So if this is actually a picture, actually it was about 3 months into my care. This is me 3 months into rock bottom of my life when I started care with her, and my posture is not great, but even more so, if you can see my face there, I'm not a person who's enjoying living life. And as I progressed and I continued to get care, all of that life came back. And what I was doing was getting adjusted. I didn't change my diet. I didn't make lifestyle changes at this point. At this point, all I was really capable of doing was showing up in her office, laying on a table, and receiving adjustments. This is a picture from 1 month into care and 9 months into care. And just if you can look and imagine my spine superimposed there, and you think of it as a rod, you can see how much tension was in that bent rod from just having bad posture. Aligning that and creating a more normal curve allowed for less tension in my nervous system, and I can tell you so much improved. It wasn't just that my posture improved, it wasn't just that I stopped having muscle aches and pain, but my anxiety and depression started lifting. I didn't take antidepressants, I didn't change my diet, I didn't take any herbs, I was strictly getting adjusted. And in doing that, I started feeling, maybe a few weeks into it, feelings of happiness, and they were fleeting and they would leave. But it gave me this sense of hope. And so I continued working with her. I stayed there and got my adjustments 2 or 3 times a week in the beginning because I was in such a difficult place in my life that I really wasn't able to function otherwise. In addition, I started seeing my immune system improve and my allergies get better, and colds and flus start to be less in severity and less frequent. My digestion started improving, my energies improved, my acne improved, and definitely the body pain and the muscle spasms were improving at that time. Now, this is still 9 months into rock bottom of care. And I was really just like learning about this whole new world of chiropractic and the nervous system and body work and how all of it impacts our nervous system. I love this quote. It says, "It used to be dogma that the brain was shut away from the actions of the immune system, shielded from the outside forces of nature. But that's not how it is at all. It turns out that the brain talks directly to the immune system, sending commands that control the body's inflammatory responses to infection and autoimmune disease. So I continued, and I still do to this day, continue to get so much body work. It's one of my favorite things. My body and my brain and my soul just love it. But I also have learned in studying neurology that it's one of the most profound ways to affect not only your nervous system, but in turn your immune system, and calm it down from the sympathetic response of fight or flight, which causes inflammation and stress, to a parasympathetic mode of rest and digest. A lot of times we're caught in cycles and our body is not able to turn off that fight or flight response. And getting a body work like chiropractic adjustments, and also massage and acupuncture and different types of things that actually physically cause input into our bodies allows us to shift into a parasympathetic rest and digest mode. So that has profound impacts on inflammatory response and autoimmune expression. It's one of my biggest passions, and it's something that I talk a lot about. So if you're interested in finding out more, I will continue to give talks on specifically the body work. And I started feeling a lot better, but so many things improved, but I still wasn't healed. I was still having recurring subluxations. I was still having problems that would seem to go away and come back, even though overall my life was so much better. I was functional. I was able to go back to college and finish, and just be that person that I felt like could function in life without just hanging out at my parents' house sleeping all day. I still knew there was a little bit more to go. And so this is, at this point, after getting body work on a regular basis and continuing to get it, I started to think about, what is the food that I'm eating doing to my health and wellness? There's that whole chemical aspect of causing chemical subluxations. So I started thinking about my relationship with food. And when I say I stopped abusing food, I had a very addictive relationship with food, and I was very tied into my emotional states and just kind of like what I wanted to eat when I wanted to eat it to make myself feel good. This is a collage that I personally made of all of my favorite foods growing up. Now I want to make a little disclaimer that this was not how my family ate. My parents cooked home-cooked meals every day. My sister and them, they sat around the table and ate it. But for some reason, I thought I had the agency to make choices that were for my body, and these are the things that I chose to do. I grew up in the Midwest, Cincinnati, Ohio, and our town was famed for having some of the best homemade ice cream, little mom and pop shops, and lots of pizza and hoagies and things like that. And so I just kind of went nuts on standard American diet junk food. And so this is the sort of stuff that I was eating growing up. And when I went to college and thought I was like really mature and growing up and healthier, I graduated and started eating expensive food. I started going to organic markets and novelty places. But if you look at what I was eating as a child and what I was eating when I went off to college, they all have one thing in common, and that's sugar. I was a sugarholic, and everything that I was eating, from the bread, the cereal, the pasta, to the organic raw honey and the whole raw milk, and even the organic fruit that I started eating in college, it was all converting so quickly to glucose. And it wasn't until I received my autoimmune diagnosis, when I was studying to become a chiropractor, that I started becoming interested in functional medicine and really thinking about how food impacted me. It's kind of a funny story, because I think it was maybe my first or second quarter in school, some upperclassmen suggested that I go to this thyroid course, that it was this amazing teacher and it was mind-blowing information. And I thought, I trusted them, and so I signed up for it, but I thought, how random. A whole 3-day weekend dedicated to the thyroid. Like, what could they possibly teach me, and why are they focusing on the thyroid? Let alone did I know that it was such a massive issue for so many people, including myself. At this point, I thought that it was sort of a sideline issue. And that course, of course, was Dr. Datis Karazian's Mastering the Thyroid. And so I went to that course, and after the course was over, we were taught about all these labs and all of the functions of the thyroid, and I thought, well, this is really interesting, and it sounds like a lot of people are affected by it. So there's labs that we can run for them to help them figure out what's going on. And I might as well run these labs on myself just to get a baseline of maybe what a healthy person looks like and see where I'm at with this. So I ran the labs, and this is a multi-tissue autoimmune panel, and I got my results back. 20 out of 24 of the tissue antibodies was positive on my lab result. This was the first time I ever found out I was autoimmune. So I was a student. I was not going in because I was feeling terrible or I was having crazy symptoms, although I had in the past, and it makes total sense that I had autoimmunity. When I ran these markers, I lost it again. I thought all that progress I had made, all those things I had done and changed, and I was feeling so great and on top of my game. How could I be so sick? And I spun into a tailspin. And so I ran also some food panels, and it came back showing that I had all this reactivity to wheat and gluten. Now I want to point out here that a lot of times people will go to a conventional doctor, or they'll run a panel that says that, you know, oh, I was celiac or I wasn't celiac. For example, when they run a celiac test, they're only running this one marker here that's called alpha gliadin 17. If that comes back negative, they say, oh, you're not celiac. However, this panel is all of the portions of wheat. And if you see here, if I ran a celiac test, I would have come back negative. But I'm still having an immune reaction to other portions of the wheat proteins that are actually affecting my skin, my brain, and my mucous membrane layers. I ran a cross-reactive panel to wheat and gluten, and I saw lots of dairy on there. I saw yeast on there. I saw tapioca and teff on there. All these things that are marketed as being gluten-free products. And this blew my mind, and I at that point realized that all that healthy, expensive, fancy cheeses and those baguettes I was eating, they were not serving me, even though I was feeling better. So at this point, I started to explore the idea of the inverted food pyramid. You know, everyone knows the food pyramid where the foundation is breads and pastas and starches, and there's this whole movement to the paleo foods, or the inverted food pyramid, which really prioritizes healthy, natural, wild, organic proteins and healthy fats, the good fats, followed by lots of vegetables, fruits, and then a little bit of starches and grains, if any. So I did it in a stair-step process. I know a lot of people will go cold turkey, they'll try different protocols. I started by just removing all wheat and gluten-free products, because as you saw, tapioca was positive on my labs, and tapioca is in every single gluten-free product that I've come across, like every bread. And so I removed those. And you can just imagine that if I removed wheat and gluten, but I was still eating gluten-free products and I didn't know that I was reacting to them, I wouldn't necessarily feel better, and I would feel at a loss. I would feel like I put in so much effort to avoid the wheat and the gluten, and I was still not getting better. And a lot of times that's because of cross-reactivity. Because I knew, I removed all those. I removed dairy and I removed soy. And that took me to a whole new level of wellness. So essentially I started eating paleo and eventually found my way to trying the AIP autoimmune protocol by doing elimination diets. And there's so much fantastic information out there and experts on different diets and protocols and elimination diets to figure this out. But for me, this was incredibly powerful to change the way I was eating from ice cream and baguettes and triple cream brie to lots of vegetables and meats and the really good fats. So if we just kind of look at the graphics of it, growing up I was pretty much choosing to eat 50% wheat and 50% dairy. And then I went to college and and I was drinking a lot of soda then. I forgot to mention that I was drinking a lot of Coke. And I went off to college and I thought, well, I'm sophisticated and mature and healthy now, so I'm going to eat expensive wheat and I'm going to eat expensive dairy, and I'll throw in a little bit of organic fruit there and wash it down with really expensive pressed juices. Again, a complete carb load. It wasn't until recently that I kept those organic fruits in there, but everything else radically changed. I then started eating about 30% of my plate being organic vegetables. And then I added organic proteins. And I have to say, after almost a decade of being a self-proclaimed vegetarian, which was basically an excuse for me to binge on carbs whenever I wanted, it was really hard for me to reintroduce the protein. And that took a little bit of finagling and some steps, and actually a lot of functional medicine to help me be able to reintroduce and digest and absorb the protein well, because it's not easy when you haven't been eating meat for a long time. And a lot of people speak to this. I know my friend Mickey was vegan for a while before she became the autoimmune protocol kind of spokesperson, and there is a shift that your body needs to make to have the right enzymes. And finally, I introduced so many healthy fats like avocados, coconut oil, and healthy animal fats too that come from wild, pastured, grass-fed animals, and organics. Make sure you don't eat animal fat from conventionally raised meat, because that's where all the toxins in those conventionally raised meats get stored in the fat. So that's where you might hear it in the mainstream as don't eat saturated or animal fats because they're not healthy for you. They are healthy for you if you eat them from healthy animals. If you're eating them from non-healthy animals, they are holding all the toxins of those unhealthy diets those animals are being fed. So this is how my diet changed over time. And for me, this was similar to an abusive relationship that I had with food that I was able to get out of. And working through all the emotions of that was a really difficult process that could be several hours of another conversation. And the other thing that I didn't really go into here, but I added water. I used to never drink water. It was always either soda or juice or tea. And water is, most of the people in our practice, when we actually measure their hydration levels, are dehydrated. So it's incredibly important that you drink tons of water, and it's high quality water that doesn't have toxins and pharmaceutical drugs that are in our water supply, and it's filtered. So that's a really important thing to add into your diet if you're not already doing that. The third thing I did to heal was I found my magic pill. I say this kind of tongue-in-cheek because I think everyone, well, not everyone, but most people are looking for a magic pill to take to make their Hashimoto's or their autoimmunity or whatever suffering they're experiencing go away. And there really isn't a pill for everyone. And there isn't a pill for Hashimoto's, and there isn't a pill for autoimmunity. But this is where functional medicine and supplements and homeopathy can be so profoundly effective for people. And it doesn't even have to be a forever solution. It can be a magic pill that you take for a little bit of time until things get back into balance. So in general, there are some supplements and botanicals that do help people with autoimmunity or have like incredibly high inflammatory response. And this is what I was taking sort of as my general approach. I was taking a lot of anti-inflammatory polyphenols that included things that had turmeric and resveratrol in them. I started taking incredibly high doses of fish oil. I actually ran an omega-3 test. I didn't put those results on here, but maybe someday I'll show them to you. They were through the roof terrible. My omega-3 to omega-6 ratio was abominable, and it was because I never ate fish. I never ate omega-3s, and I ate a lot of omega-6 rich foods and fried foods and all that. So I started high dosing and when I started, and I wouldn't recommend this for anyone or everyone because I tested my levels, but I started taking about 10 to 15 fish oil capsules a day. And immediately my eyesight improved, my brain function improved, my skin improved, and my overall inflammation went down. And for me, that was a major factor because I had such high levels of omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. So that's something that generally, maybe not at that high dose, but generally is really great for people with autoimmunity. Digestive enzymes are also super important. There's 80% of our immune system is in our gut. And so a lot of people have at some point had some issue or compromise in their digestive system or their gut. That could be from tons of antibiotics when you had strep throat as a kid, or eating tons of sugar and ice cream growing up, or chronic stress and the cortisol sympathetic response that destroys your gut. And so digestive enzymes will help digest and break down and absorb that food until your gut has the ability to repair itself and produce its own enzymes. I also started taking a lot of antioxidants. Glutathione is a really incredible, powerful one that I would take topically. I would actually rub it on my elbows and on the bottom of my feet to get absorbed. And I started taking a couple blends of really high quality vitamins and minerals, in particular activated B vitamins, vitamin D, and vitamin A. Those tend to be common deficiencies in people with autoimmune disease. But I have to say, even with doing this general protocol, I was getting so much better and better, but I hit a wall. And so from there, I actually worked with my partner, Dr. Titus Chu. He's been practicing functional medicine for over a decade, and he helped me prioritize some labs to run. And we actually ran a stool test to figure out what else was going on that was left there. And he looked at the results of that, and we saw that my beta-glucuronidase was also through the roof. I'm not going to get into all the physiology of this right now, but this was this is actually my stool panel right here. As you can see, the normal range is 300 something to 6,000 something, and my levels were at 12,000. Now, all I had to do at this point is add in calcium D-glucarate. For me, this was my magic pill. So when I found calcium D-glucarate and I started taking it, I can tell you my hormones balanced, my menstrual cycle regularized, my skin cleared up, and any of those residual remaining things that I had that were still a problem with my body started to clear up, because the calcium D-glucarate was helping me detox the excess estrogen that was not getting out of my digestive system. And it was because my gut was so compromised over the years. So this is something that I wouldn't recommend for everyone, and it is not going to be the answer for many people out there. But my point in telling the story is that as I delved deeper and did some investigation and took a functional medicine approach to things, I had a lot of trial and error, and I did improve in the past and over the years, making a lot of lifestyle changes, but there was still something missing, because I had almost 20 years of abuse with food, and my gut was just not where it needed to be. So it didn't matter how much food I eliminated that was triggering me, or how long I did a healing diet for. Those things were not going to help me detox that estrogen because I was so far out of balance. So this comes to my philosophy of supplementation. I am definitely with Mother Nature. I think that the more natural we can do things, the better. And if there's a natural or a whole food approach to something, I would always go that route. I grew up as a first-generation American, and I had a lot of healing diets and healing, like, home remedies that my Persian parents would use at home. And as I got older and older, I found out there was so much basis in those ideas of using natural medicine. That being said, there are times where there has been tissue damage, or there is a physiological process that is so far out of whack, because maybe 20 years of eating ice cream and cereal all the time, or whatever the reason is, stress, environmental toxins, genetic disposition. There are some things that create such an imbalance that we can use supplementation, such as herbs, or even some synthetic supplements. High quality supplements can help us as a crutch for a while to get back into balance. And once we get back into balance, then we can stop using them and go back to everything being as Mother Earth intended. And that being said, there's also processes that for some people are never going to get back to that level of natural function. For example, for me, I have a genetic mutation, which I think a lot of people in the autoimmune community become aware of, that doesn't allow me to utilize B vitamins very well. So for me, taking an activated B vitamin for the rest of my life is actually really, really important for me to maintain that level of health without allowing other processes to fall to the wayside because I lack those vitamins. And so now that I got my body and my physiology and all of that in order, I sort of had to step it up a little and start addressing some of the other things in terms of the mental, emotional, spiritual realm that were keeping me from totally healing in the way that I felt whole as a person. And so the fourth thing that I did was that I opened up to love. And when I say this, it's like I had family and friends and community all along the way, but when I isolated myself from them, or I saw myself as different, or they weren't able to understand me, it really hindered my healing process. So one of the most important things, that, and like actually a very difficult step for me, was asking for help from my loved ones or from my friends, or kind of just letting them know where I'm at. And I wanna add in there, as I asked for help, I never used my autoimmunity as an excuse to get out of something that I didn't want to do. I learned this from Dr. Mario Martinez, and the reason for that is that a lot of times people aren't really able to speak up for themselves or what they want, and so illness becomes a kind of well understood, culturally accepted excuse to get out of things. And I did this a lot. I got out of school constantly from grade school through college by being sick, taking sick days. I can't go. But what happens is that your psychoneuroimmunology starts learning that pattern. And it starts learning that if you are sick, then you'll get your needs met. Because maybe you just need to rest longer, or you don't want to eat that food, or you use the fact that, oh, I'm sick, I can't have that, rather than just saying no. So this is really important, to ask for help from your friends or family when you feel as if you need a little extra support, but not use your autoimmunity or your Hashimoto's or anything, even a cold or flu, as an excuse to get what you want out of that situation. So this was something that I really had to learn. I had to stop using my illness as a way to be a well taken care of introvert, because I didn't want to go to school and I didn't want to go to that party. I would speak to people. I would talk to my friends and family and say, I really don't want to go out and socialize for New Year's. This is what I want to do. This is what I need, and how can you help me achieve those things? Rather than declining invitations and saying, oh, I'm sick, I can't make it to that party. And that ties into the idea of authenticity. So really being yourself and owning that and saying, I actually want to stay home and read a book, or whatever it may be. It may not be that you're an introvert. It's just that one decision may not be the choice you want to be making. So being really authentic in yourself and how you express yourself in the world is an incredibly powerful step to whole body healing. And along with that is vulnerability, being able to show your vulnerability and understanding that vulnerability is not weakness. To be able to be vulnerable and proud and loving and open up to the world doesn't show that you're not capable of something, or that you're weak or could be hurt. It shows that you're actually incredibly empowered and loving of yourself. And in doing that, I started seeing love everywhere. I started seeing it in the ways that I needed, like if somebody hugged me or brought me a home-cooked meal, but also in the ways that maybe I didn't understand before, that when my friend, did something for me, that I saw it was coming from a place of love. And I saw love everywhere. Actually, one of the most healing things that I did was take hikes with my dog, and it was just between me and her and the trees, and everything just came from this place of love, and that was incredibly powerful for healing. And it's funny, because if I go back and I go to my neurology courses or my functional medicine courses, especially with Dr. Karazian, he always talks about love. And it's really hard to measure, but it has profound effects on the immune system. And getting in a fight can send your immune system into a flare-up for 3 days. And just having love, laughter, and sunshine has incredibly calming effects on your immune system. So learning how to practice that in the world with everyone, and especially with yourself, really learning to love yourself through rituals, through practices, and being able to be with yourself in those times. So this is another passion of mine, and it's kind of all the time I have to get into it today, but it's something that I love talking about. So if this interests you or you're intrigued, please reach out to me to continue that conversation. And finally, the fifth thing that I did was that I changed my mind. And I don't mean this literally, like I didn't just sit there and say, oh, I'm not sick, I'm just going to change my mind. But what I'm talking about is actually really reframing the concept of autoimmunity for myself and embedding that into my self-care rituals and continuing to get all of that incorporated with more energetic body work, which deals more with our kind of our mind, body, spirit realms. So to think about like how I changed my mind, I have to first address what is autoimmunity and what I thought it was at the time. Really, it's this concept of this inability to distinguish yourself from other, meaning that if a foreign invader like a virus or a dust particle comes into your body and immune system should be able to tag that as other. And it should be able to look at all your own tissue and tag that and recognize that as that's self, that's me. What happens with autoimmunity is that the immune system becomes dysregulated and it starts actually tagging your own tissue as foe. And this causes this constant internal battle with chronic inflammation and tissue damage eventually, anytime there's an inflammatory response. So that's kind of the scientific, philosophical understanding of what autoimmunity is. And when I started learning about this, I kept going back to this thought, why me? Why do I have this? And it was followed by feelings of shame and anger and sadness and regret. Like I would feel really, I don't know, I had incredible experiences of shame. Like there's something wrong with me. I'm broken. You know, I'm like a diseased person. I'm one of the like invalids in society. And that would spin into anger. And I would go, you know, I would be out in public and I would see a guy, you know, eat a sandwich and seemingly not have an issue with it and just get so angry. Like, why can he eat bread and I can't? And all of that spun into a lot of things. And then just sadness about, like, why is this happening to me? This sucks. Like, my life is painful and this hurts and this is going to be a struggle for the rest of my life. And then regret for all the decisions that I had made or all the, you know, antibiotics I took as a kid, not knowing that they were having this effect on my systemic immune development. This lasted a very long time, and this was definitely the hardest step. But what I did is, oh, I'm going to jump over that. I got to a point where I was able to reframe that entire idea for myself. And I think it just came off like a light bulb one day in thinking about this for years. But what I realized was that I'm not broken, I'm not defective, I'm not imperfect, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm just a canary in a coal mine. And for those of you that don't know the metaphor of the canary in the coal mine, it's not really even a metaphor. At the turn of the 20th century, when there was a lot of coal mining, the miners would actually take a living canary, this beautiful, gorgeous, delicate songbird, down into the mines with them in a cage. And they would go about their work and they would pay attention to this canary. And when this canary dropped dead, those miners would book it out of the mine because they knew the air quality was changing in a way that would soon cause the miners to drop dead. Unfortunately, that was the purpose of the canary in the coal mine. It was this beautifully sensitive animal that was able to sense danger like an omen in the environment before everyone else did and before everyone else felt it. But the reality was that there was danger for everyone. When I realized that, my life changed. When I realized that I was a canary and this world is essentially a coal mine with the environmental toxins, the amount of chronic stress, all the things that are becoming growing epidemics, there wasn't anything wrong with me. I was just the first line of people to sense that happening. And I then started seeing my autoimmunity as a gift. and realizing that this was happening in my body because I was ignoring these signals of things that weren't good for me to eat or environments that weren't good for me to inhale, things like that. So that's how I actually developed my passion project, which is the canary life. And it's this idea of living with autoimmunity as a canary and understanding that there's nothing wrong with you and not feeling like you're the isolated, broken, separate one that has to, you know, order from a different menu on the restaurant. All these things that are affecting us in 5, 10, 20, 30 years will be affecting every other living being in this planet if they continue to be exposed to it. So that was, you know, a huge life-changing realization for me, and that's where this Canary Life project was born out of. And so after going through the process of healing my body and then healing my insides and then working on my mind and my emotions, reframing the world like that for me is the step at which I felt a sense of healing. I have since been in remission. I don't think of myself as a sick person or somebody who's suffering or lesser than anyone else sitting next to me in public or at home. And it's amazing to being like growing up for over 20 years thinking that I was the sick, weak one in the family. And now I have more energy than everyone. I wake up super early. I go all day long and I feel so vital. And that is the gift that I feel I was given. And this autoimmunity was just this little calling card to let me hear that was part of my life. So that's really my story. Those are the 5 things that I did to heal. I let people touch me. I stopped abusing food. I found my magic pill. I opened up to love, and I changed my mind. I took all those things and I actually incorporated them into the way that I practice. And with the people that I see, I do a lot of body work, chiropractic body work. We do functional neurology to help balance their nervous systems and their brains so that it speaks to their immune system. When needed, we do functional medicine and run labs. And I kind of skipped over the homeopathy because I'm short on time, but homeopathy is has been amazing for me. It's like one of my favorite remedies and has been incredibly powerful for somebody who's as sensitive as I am. And so I'm going to continue talking about these topics on the Canary Life, and I'd love to have Pearl and Fabian join me again and do a little question and answer session.
Hi.
Hi. Oh, Fabian, your mic is not on.
Your mic isn't on, Fab. Well, Fab, if you can turn on your mic, that would be great. We would love to hear you.
So, but before we start this question and answer session, I did promise an ebook which kind of explains a lot more in detail some of the stuff that I talked about today, and I also have a little graphic for you. So I'm going to add that ebook right now for all of you to download.
So the ebook is going to go in the handout section of your control panel, everyone. So you'll see something pop up under the handout section, and all you got to do is click on that and download it so that you can have it for life from Dr. Natasha Fallahi. We can go on to starting the questions here. So the first question we have for you coming from the audience, Dr. Natasha Fallahi, is during follow-up blood work, are tests performed for levels of adrenal and pituitary functions, and how do these glands, excuse me, just one sec, how do these glands' performance help or hinder Hashimoto's symptoms?
Okay, so can you repeat the question?
Sure. So during follow-up blood work, are tests performed for levels of adrenal and pituitary functions? And how do these glands' performance help or hinder Hashimoto's symptoms?
That's a great question, and I can't really speak to all follow-up lab work because every doctor is different, and a lot of times it depends on if you're going to a conventional approach or a functional approach. I definitely know that that is very important. Those are very important markers to look at when you're looking at the big picture of Hashimoto's, you can look at those levels in the blood, but you can also run adrenal tests, for example, that are saliva tests, and they're a little bit more telling of your adrenal levels throughout the day. We run those tests often, and you kind of just spit in a vial 4 times throughout the day to measure your adrenal and cortisol levels as you go through the day. All these hormones are intricately linked in a really complicated web that is really important. So actually, when people have blood sugar dysregulation, or they have adrenal dysfunction, or pituitary dysfunction, they could be doing so much work to try to address their thyroid symptoms or work on their thyroid, and because of the interconnected web, they may not see the results that they want to see. So that's what's really powerful about working with a great functional medicine practitioner who's able to prioritize those labs. Because the other thing I want to say about labs, and I've talked about this a little bit before, is that it can be incredibly overwhelming. There are thousands of labs available to people, which is amazing that we have access to run these labs. But I also want to caution from feeling like you need to run every lab, or get all this results and data, because that can actually turn into its own negative cycle that happened for me, this self-amplifying cycle where I would run a lab and then I would get some negative test result back, and then I would think I was even more broken. And so I think that if you can work with somebody who is able to help prioritize those labs for you, that would be a really fantastic approach that I would recommend, so that you as the person can focus on your healing and not about what the lab levels are. It's super important to track comprehensive labs, and I know we talk a lot about patient advocacy and learning about this stuff, but a lot of times, myself included in my process, I started learning a little too much and trying to self-diagnose and self-treat. So again, labs are really powerful, and don't think that you need to run every lab on the market to actually achieve healing or come to a place of wellness. Just briefly, things that like the adrenals, if your adrenals are burnt out or you're having blood sugar issues, those have dramatic impacts on the gut and the brain, and will actually, if you're doing like all the healing diet stuff, but you're having this imbalance in your cortisol and your blood sugar all the time, you're going to be constantly unhealing your gut, like destroying the gut lining as you're doing the healing work. So making sure that you address adrenal and pituitary and brain function as it speaks to all those hormones is incredibly important.
Great, thank you for that answer.
And we have another question from Lena. Lena is asking, should one take a thyroid medication before doing thyroid panel blood test in the morning?
Thanks for that question, Lena. I'm actually not going to answer that question because it's not within my scope personally. I know that there's a lot of really fantastic people out there who do work with thyroid medication. As a doctor of chiropractic, we do not do prescription medications, and so I don't feel confident in answering that question for you. But I think if you can contact a pharmacist or a functional medicine doctor who does do prescriptions, they would have a better answer for you.
Great. The next question is from Tanya. I've been researching fluoride, and I know with Hashi's you should not have it. What positive results did you find by getting off of fluoride?
Oh, I do everything to avoid fluoride that I can. I do not use toothpaste that has fluoride in it. I use natural toothpaste, or I make my own at home. And I also have a water filter that takes out fluoride, and I add an extra filter that takes out more fluoride and arsenic. I actually noticed clarity of mind when I started removing all that fluoride from my water. When I love water filters. That's another topic I talk a lot about, but I used to hate drinking water, and when I would drink it, it was like I was averse to it. And when I started having really high quality filtered water at home, I actually loved the taste of it and the smell of it, and I could feel it nourishing my body in a different way. So when I started drinking water that didn't have fluoride, and I stopped using fluoride toothpaste, I noticed that my mind was clearer, but I used to always have crazy dental issues. Like I was the child who got cavity. I had like 4 cavities every time I went to the dentist, as you can imagine with my diet. And when I stopped using fluoride, I actually have not had a single cavity since. Part of that has to do with the, the dental health, but most of it is actually my gut health, and having the right probiotics so that my mouth is able to combat the cavity germs. So I would really recommend taking a look at fluoride in your body and how it's affecting you.
We have
That was
another
great.
question. Yes, thank you very much. From Pan, my doctor said that Hashimoto is like a tornado, that it does its damage and then it's over. I thought it was an autoimmune ongoing disease. Can you please explain this to me? I would greatly appreciate it, Pan.
Sure. So I just want to, can you please repeat it? I just want to make sure I get all the points of that question. I don't want to
So
miss
she
something.
said that her doctor says that Hashimoto is like a tornado that comes in and does its damage and then it's over. And she says, I thought it was an autoimmune ongoing disease. Can you please explain this to me?
Yeah, absolutely. It is ongoing. Thanks for asking that, Pamela. So this is how I've come to understand it. So I showed a slide of what autoimmune disease looks like. It's your body tagging your own tissue. I had a fantastic teacher, Dr. Tom Colton, who explained this in this story that has stuck with me ever since. If you think about your immune system as kind of like the military for your body, and it's there to protect you, there's all different departments of that military. And I apologize if I make any sort of metaphor mistakes here. I don't know that much about the military. But the idea is that there are departments in your immune system whose job it is to strictly go out and plant flags on things that are dangerous. That's all they do. They put flags on viruses, on dust, on anything that enters your body. In autoimmunity, this part of your immune system is going and putting flags on your own tissue. So it's marking it as, this is not us. And so those flags in Hashimoto's have now been added to your thyroid. That's what Hashimoto's disease is. You have flags on your thyroid now. There's other departments of the immune system that are kind of like the brute force. So when the commander-in-chief just says, attack, which is what inflammation is, an inflammatory response, those parts of the immune system go out and all they do is look for flags. They search and destroy. That's all they're looking for. They're not going to each flag and saying, oh, are you still okay or not? That job has already been done, supposedly. So those parts of those cytokines in our immune system go out and they just destroy in that inflammatory response. So this was really powerful for me to understand my body and my immune system that way. Because I can go into remission. I can not have symptoms. I can get my inflammation under control. But my immune system is still sending out that guy who's not doing his job right and putting flags on my body. So he has flags on my thyroid. So when you have a Hashimoto's flare-up, what that means is that you've had inflammation go up in your system for whatever reason. It could be a cold, it could be stress, it could be a food trigger. And those search and destroy guys have gone out. They've killed all the flags, and several of them were on your thyroid, and your thyroid then spills out, like that damage happens, you spill thyroid hormone all over, but your body is still confused, and it's going to continue when you make new tissue to put the flags on it. So it does happen. That's called a flare, and you can calm down from the flare. But what's really important about seeing autoimmunity as an ongoing condition is that you need to look at all those factors of your lifestyle that are causing that inflammation to happen and reduce the amount of flags that are being put out and also the amount of surges where there's a battle being fought. I hope that makes sense. That story really stuck for me. And so when you have an autoimmune flare, that tissue in your thyroid does get destroyed. It is kind of a done deal, but you do produce more tissue. And you will continue to attack stuff. So it's both kind of a one-off episode, but it is ongoing. And that's the idea of autoimmunity, Hashimoto's and otherwise.
Great. This is all such helpful information. Thank you, Dr. Foley. This question is from Michelle. I have RA and fibro and just got the news of this. Please help.
Well, I'm sorry to hear, Michelle, that you just got diagnosed with that, and I'm really glad that you're here and you're talking with us, and I'm really glad you found your way here, because a lot of times when people first get diagnosed, they don't realize there's a lot of options out there. What I want to say to you is I've experienced a lot of fibromyalgia in the past in my life too, and what I want to say to you that I think can help you right now is stick with this amazing autoimmune community online, Hashimoto's awareness. There's so many other resources that provide such helpful options for you that you can make informed decisions. There's a lot of hope out there, and I hope that my story showed some of that, because I can tell you that 5, 10, 15 years ago, I never thought I'd be sitting here saying that I love my life and I feel more alive and healthier than I ever have. But it is definitely possible, and it's definitely not the end of the road by any means. So thank you for joining us, and stay in touch and keep learning from these amazing communities, because I know that all these women here, including Pearl and Fabienne, are here to help other women who not experience the things that we did.
Thank you. Thank you for this question. From Jeff, is there any fish oil that you recommend? I think you went over that, but
yeah. So the main things that we're looking at when you're looking at fish oil is EPA and DHA. DHA is great for brain health. It helps regenerate all that nervous system tissue. It's really great. Like, we use it in our office for post-concussion syndrome and people who really need a boost with their neurology and their brain health. EPA is the more anti-inflammatory one. So I focused more on high levels of EPA to DHA ratio, but my fish oil had them both. I don't know, I think just for whatever's sake, I'm not going to talk about specific brands here, but you feel free to reach out or follow me on the Canary Life. I talk a lot about my favorite products, but there's a lot of really great fish oils out there, and there's a lot of really not great fish oils. Like, I would not recommend big box discount grocery fish oils. You want to make sure that the fish are high quality, because that's also a scarcity in our world right now, which is unfortunate. And there's a lot of fish that have toxins and heavy metals in them that you don't want to be having the fish oil from that. So just find a very reputable company, and if it's an inflammatory response, focus on higher EPA levels.
This is a question from Michelle. What blood panels should I have had with hypothyroidism? She has RA and fibro, as well as Hashimoto's. She has a biopsy tomorrow on her left thyroid. So she's just asking about, what blood panels should she continue to maybe have in her healing process.
It's hard to say because everyone's history and their own body is different. What I do recommend is, if you have any thyroid condition at all, making sure at least once in your life running a full thyroid panel, meaning there are markers. There's about 9 or 10 markers on a full thyroid panel that include 2 thyroid antibodies and a bunch of other markers about how the thyroid is being utilized in your liver and your gut. Oftentimes, in conventional approaches, they often only run TSH and T4 because that affects the dosage of the prescription. But if you're looking at it from a holistic or functional approach, if you run a full thyroid panel, including T3, reverse T3, T3 uptake, and I know there's some resources out there that also provide information about that. I know HA is going to be providing a lot of info in the near future about thyroid panels. So stay in tune with awareness, and we will help guide you with the best panels to run for your thyroid.
Thank you. We have a question from Amio. Both my girls have Hashi, 10 and 8 now. I have 2 autoimmune diseases myself. I explain to them why I make certain choices with their food, their vitamin, but they're kids and fight back. at some point, I want to encourage them to read up on Hashi specifically. Looking back, if it was known you had Hashi, would that have helped at a young age? That why me is very strong with the young ones.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That's I applaud you. I have yet to have children myself, and I can just imagine having, you know, healthy lifestyle choices, that it's hard with kids because they go to school and they go to their friend's house. So I unfortunately I don't have the best like personal parenting advice. I know that offering them choice, and even for adults, I can speak to that too. Like, make foods that are fun and interesting and they're still healthy for you in a lifestyle manner. It doesn't feel like you're sacrificing at all. I can tell you that I don't eat a standard American diet. I eat somewhere right now between paleo and AIP, and I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything, honestly. Like, this took a while to get here, but honestly, when I see somebody eating a pizza, I have no emotional response to it anymore. I know it's a little different with kids, but I think one of the best things is just having lots of options at home that are all within the kind of autoimmune compliant things that you can reach for, including fun snacks. This is a big thing that my Alana, who's running the Canary Life with me, she's so great with food and idea and creative things like that. We love talking about that on the Canary Life, and I know we're going to be providing like fun tips for like great desserts and snacks and treats and travel tips for living that autoimmune lifestyle and not feeling like you're restricted all the time. I think if your kids can have that experience where they don't feel like they're missing out, that would make it a little easier. And then to the second part of your question, like looking back, if I had Hashis, if I knew I had Hashis or autoimmunity at an earlier age, absolutely. Like, that's the regret that I feel, that I didn't know, and I made all these choices that escalated things. And so what I honestly, from my personal perspective, if I had known, I would have started getting chiropractic adjustments at birth. I treat a lot of babies and moms, and they respond so quickly because their nervous systems aren't overloaded, and it's such a beautiful, powerful approach to the body in and balancing the immune system there. So that's something that they don't, you know, that most kids, if you find a great chiropractor, they love getting adjusted. It's fun, it's playful, and it's really gentle. So I would really recommend that, and I would also recommend looking into probiotics if that is possibly an issue. That was an issue for me. I said I took a lot of antibiotics as a kid because of my strep throat and my chronic illness and asthma that they thought I had, which was just dairy reactivity. And so I was on a lot of antibiotics, and my gut bacteria was so out of whack, and that just escalated as I got older. So making sure that their guts are healthy, even if they're going to make choices that aren't ideal.
Thank you, Natasha, for sharing your story, for sharing your heart and your expertise. We are coming to an end tonight, and we know there's much question that we haven't been able to answer, but look for your emails, and we'll do our best to answer them.
Yes. Thank you, Natasha, for everything that you shared with all of us. We want to thank you for attending this tonight. We were so excited that you got to come on and to hear about the 5 things that Natasha did to heal from her Hashimoto's. If you have any other questions, you can contact us at team@hashimotosawareness.org. Again, that's team@hashimotosawareness.org. Once you leave today's webinar, you're going to receive an amazing survey on this presentation. And if you have just a few minutes, we would love to hear your feedback. It's super important for us and for us moving forward with you and what you need and how we can serve you. So just take a couple of minutes to do that for us. It would be awesome. And what's so exciting now is that you're going to receive a follow-up email when, like, 24 to 48 hours from now, with a link to view a recording of today's webinar. So you can watch it anytime you want. Yay!
On behalf of Hashimoto's Awareness and our presenters, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We hope you've enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, Pearl and Fabian. It was such an honor to be able to speak, and I hope the audience enjoyed it, and I look forward to hearing from you. We'll try to get back to you with all your unanswered questions in a frequently asked questions section that I get. So Thanks for participating.
And don't forget to download that free gift that you get tonight. So go to the handout section, click on that link, and make sure you download that for yourself because it'll be great to take with you through life. We love you guys.
HA is a nonprofit organization that relies entirely on donation from supporters like you. So if you'd like to support our mission and see more webinars such as this one, please visit our website at hashimotosawareness.org and donate to our mission today.
Yeah, even if it's $5 or something, I can tell you Pearl and Fabian have been working tirelessly for years, and they're so wonderful, and they have families, and they do all the other stuff throughout their day, and they come home and they dedicate themselves to Hashimoto's awareness. I'm so honored to join them in this webinar and in this process. But even if you have $5, it makes a huge difference with this amazing Hashimoto's community that we have. So if you can help contribute so that they can keep doing all this amazing programming, that would be so fantastic.
The reason we're here today is because of you. So thank you. And without you, we would not be here. So God bless.
We'll see you soon.
Bye.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.